Let's check out the top 4 most violent crimes committed by the Mafia in the United States. Feel free to subscribe if you like that sort of thing. At number 4, the vicious murder of Robert Bobby Harris.
On Saturday the 29th of March 1969, the decomposing body of 49-year-old Robert Harris was found wrapped in a blanket and dumped in a landfill situated in Kearny, New Jersey. Robert Bobby Harris Jr., a black civic leader in the community, was also suspected by the police of running a large bookmaking business that catered mostly to African American numbers players in Bergen, Essex and Passaic counties. Robert Harris had disappeared on the 3rd of January 1969, with his wife reporting him missing the following day. As one newspaper reports on the discovery of Harris's corpse, the body of 49-year-old Harris, who lived in Montclair, was wrapped in a blanket, hands and feet bound, the skull battered and with multiple fractures all over, according to the Hudson County Medical Examiner's autopsy report. Further details would emerge regarding the torture and beating that Harris had sustained prior to his death, as reported by Jerry Capisi. His skull was crushed, his spine was broken, the ribs on the right side of his body were caved in, 9 ribs on the left side were fractured, as was his right leg. For good measure, Harris was shot once in the chest. He was in a kneeling position, with his ankles tied to the back of his head with wire. Thanks to information provided by informants, the authorities had long suspected that the man responsible for the torture and murder of Robert Harris was mobster Tino Fiumara. At the time of the Harris murder, Tino Fiumara was 28 years old. The future Genovese crime family heavyweight Tino Fiumara was in fact at first an associate of Philadelphia's Bruno crime family. It was a couple of years after the Bobby Harris murder that Fiumara would be transferred to the Genovese family, as I've covered in a previous video. And so, while a Bruno family associate in 1969, that Tino Fiumara is believed to have battered Robert Harris horrifically with a baseball bat before ending him with a bullet to the chest. The motive for the torture and murder of Robert Harris has been put down to a dispute over turf. And informants would also state that the then 28-year-old Tino Fiumara drove around with Harris's tied up corpse to ensure that other rival gangsters knew that the Bruno crime family was very serious about their control of gambling operations in New Jersey. As mentioned, in the early 1970s, Tino Fiumara would move to the Genovese family, being officially inducted in 1976. Over the years, the greatly feared Tino Fiumara would rise up the ranks, becoming captain, and would eventually be part of the ruling panel of the Genovese crime family. Many mob commentators had at one point considered Tino Fiumara a possible candidate for the position of boss of the famous crime family.
Number 3. The Double M murders.
Billy McCarthy and Jimmy Miraglia shot and killed 2 mob-connected bar owners, the Scalvo brothers, in a revenge attack after McCarthy had allegedly been beaten by the Scalvos in a previous altercation. McCarthy and Miraglia waited outside the Black Door bar and shot the Scalvo brothers and an innocent waitress to death. The unsanctioned killings occurred on outfit territory, and the Chicago bosses demanded retribution. As most of you may be aware, Frank Culotta, who was an associate of McCarthy's, set his friend up. Billy McCarthy was then grabbed and tortured by Anthony Spilotro. Frank Culotta would say that Anthony Spilotro told him that McCarthy was tortured with beatings, had ice picks stuck in him, and eventually had his head placed in a vice and squeezed until one of his eyes popped out. McCarthy then had his throat slashed to put him out of his misery. Interestingly, unlike the film, Billy McCarthy's head was placed in the vice face down, and not upwards as portrayed in the classic gangster movie.
Number 2. The horrific killing of William Action Jackson.
William Action Jackson was a juice collector for the Chicago outfit, with some sources suggesting that he worked for Mad Sam DeStefano, whereas some, like former FBI agent Bill Romer, suggesting that he worked for William Dodano.
Either way, William Action Jackson was believed to be a particularly vicious loan collector. Born in December 1920, Jackson had a string of arrests for assault and rape before a robbery conviction in 1949. After his release in 1953, he went to work for the outfit as hired muscle. According to mob myth, Jackson had a reputation for cruelty in his collection methods. Chicago mob folklore states that Jackson used to rape the wives and daughters of those who couldn't repay their debts, including one occasion where he allegedly bit off the nipple of one of his female victims. Whether any of this is true, who knows? In 1960, FBI agent Bill Romer says that he approached Action Jackson and tried to convince him to become an informer. However, Jackson rebuffed his offer. Despite this, the outfit hierarchy, including Sam Mooney Giancana, according to the book Double Cross written by his relatives, believed erroneously that William Action Jackson was cooperating with the authorities. There were also several other theories as to why Jackson was targeted for punishment by the outfit, but we'll take a look at these later. What is known is that William Action Jackson was put through an unimaginable amount of pain before he died. Numerous sources vary on the exact torture that Jackson was subjected to, but what is agreed on is that William Action Jackson had a meat hook rammed up his anus, and then hung naked about a foot from the ground. It is believed that his assailants proceeded to beat him with hammers, smash his kneecaps with a baseball bat, slice chunks of flesh from his body, stuck ice picks in his testicles, administered a blowtorch to his penis, and used a cattle prod on his genitals and anus, allegedly throwing some water into the mix to enhance the electric shock. The horrific torture that Jackson was subjected to for 3 days resulted in him having a heart attack and dying. Various individuals have been named as part of the torture crew, including Mad Sam Stefano and Anthony Spilotro, and their names will come as no surprise due to the deeds that they were capable of. However, the involvement of both these mobsters is the subject of some debate among historians. Due to a supposed illegal FBI recording, some of the names of the architects of Jackson's demise have been revealed. Fiore Fifi Buccieri, James Turk Torello, David Yaris, William Dodano, and Jackie Cerone were recorded almost crying with laughter whilst discussing Jackson's torture. Buccieri was recorded stating that when he stuffed the meat hook up Jackson's rectum, the victim lost control and defecated over Buccieri's hand. The hilarity for the group then continued when recalling Jackson's 300-pound fat frame wobbling about on the meat hook. Turk Torello said, "Jackson was hung up on that meat hook. He was so heavy he bent it. He was on that thing 3 days before he croaked." Buccieri then started to giggle and recalled, "Jackson, you should have seen the guy. Like an elephant he was. And when Jimmy hit him with that electric prod," Torello excitedly interrupted, "he was flopping around on that hook, Jackie. We tossed water on him to give the prod a better charge, and he's screaming." Jackie Cerone is often listed as one of Jackson's torturers, but this recording shows Torello and Buccieri telling Cerone what had happened, indicating that he wasn't there. After dying from his horrifying 3-day ordeal, the body of William Action Jackson was found in the trunk of his emerald green 1956 Eldorado Biarritz on August 11, 1961. As mentioned previously, the most talked about motive behind Jackson's torture and murder was that he was wrongly suspected of being an informer. However, there is also the theory that Jackson was punished for raping the wife of an imprisoned outfit-connected burglar, and the rumours around Jackson being an informer finally sealed the nail in his coffin.
And at number 1, Albert Aguchi. Thanksgiving 1961. The body of Alberto the Baker Aguchi is found in a field near Rochester, New York. Aguchi was a made man in the Buffalo crime family, headed by one of the founding members of the commission, Stefano Maggadino. When Aguchi's body was found, the extent of his injuries certainly rivaled those of outfit enforcer William Action Jackson.
Buffalo mobster Aguchi had suffered the following: 30 pounds of flesh cut from his body, a blowtorch used on his eyes to blind him, a fractured skull, limbs and jaw. His teeth were knocked out. He had a knotted clothesline administered to his neck for strangulation. His hands were bound together by barbed wire. His genitals cut off and stuffed in his mouth. He was then doused in gasoline and set on fire. The coroner stated that Alberto Aguchi's injuries had been sustained over a few days. So, what was Alberto Aguchi's crime that led to his unimaginably painful demise? In a nutshell, Aguchi had been one of the Buffalo crime family's main narcotics guys. When Aguchi found himself detained in a New York jail for drug dealing, he tried to get a message out to family boss Stefano Maggadino. But these efforts failed, his messages ignored by his boss. Aguchi then appears to have made the ill-advised career choice of threatening his boss. As an FBI report shows, with the arrest of Albert Aguchi, the possibility of Maggadino's exposure as dealing in narcotics became greatly increased, endangering him to punishment under the rules of Cosa Nostra. Albert Aguchi, while incarcerated at the Federal House of Detention on West Street, persisted in trying to get messages out to Maggadino through New York members of Cosa Nostra, resorting to threats to inform the members of Cosa Nostra of Maggadino's violation of the rule against dealing in narcotics. Aguchi finally raised his bail by selling his own home approximately 2 months before he was killed. As it turns out, after Alberto Aguchi's arrest for drug dealing, family boss Stefano Maggadino distanced himself from the mobster, and he wouldn't pay his bail. As the FBI file shows, Aguchi started to tell other inmates that he would expose Maggadino's drug dealing to the commission. One such mobster that Aguchi spoke to was none other than Genovese soldier Joe Valachi, who warned him of the dangerous game that he was playing, making such threats. In the end, Alberto Aguchi's wife raised the bail money. On the 8th of October, Alberto Aguchi left his home in Toronto to allegedly go for a meeting with his boss, Stefano Maggadino. His body was found naked, tortured and burnt over a month later. In the comments below, let me know your top 4 violent mafia murders. I hope you found that interesting. Thanks for watching.